In fact, with people who like me, who have a long experience in oil and gas, it was not at all turbulent. It's more the expectations of people, which are always quite impatient. In fact, from TotalEnergies' point of view, it was quite a nice, I would say, journey. We engaged with Apache to become partner in mid-29. We managed to find an agreement end 29, so only 6 months. We made the first discovery with Maca at the beginning of 2020, and then we made several discoveries. What was more complex, but we know that. In fact, we didn't make the discoveries in the right order, you know, and then we have to some appraise the discoveries. There were some discoveries were quite gassy, in fact, and the gas is more complex to develop because you need to find a market. And finally, in fact, we ended by having these 2 discoveries, Cragbadu and Sapakala, which were quite successful because when we appraised them, 6 positive wells. So in fact, in only less than 4 years, 20 to 23, we managed to identify a large oil pool, more than 750 million barrels of oil to be developed, which allowed us to come. And I came last year, 1 year ago, to visit the authorities to tell them, okay, we have in our hands something which is big enough, and now we engaged into engineering studies, and we beat a record. I can tell you, moving from end of appraisal in 23 and 1 year only after being able to sanction the project, which means to award all the big contracts. It's a project where we will award $10 billion of contracts in less than a year. It's a record in the history of the company. So in fact, maybe people's expectations are, I would say, are always impatient, but from us, from our point of view, from exploration 2020 to production 2028, first oil, 8 years, you are, if all the exploration ventures were as prolific as this one, I would be very happy as the CEO of TotalEnergies. So I'm very happy today to be here in Suriname to announce this FID. And I'm sure, again, the people will think that the oil will come tomorrow. No, we still need to build an impressive project. It's a giant project, $10 billion. And it will take 4 years, and the production will come by 2028. For me, it means a lot. First, because this year is a 100-year anniversary of TotalEnergies. So I'm happy to launch such a giant project in a new country. And I think what struck me is that, again, we managed to establish ourselves in Suriname in less than 5 years. In fact, our company is celebrating its 100-year anniversary. We are the only oil and gas major company. We managed to develop a giant company with no oil and gas in France. So we have always been obliged to go abroad. So for me, and we think that this celebration is 100 years of pioneer. So I have the feeling myself to be a pioneer coming to Suriname to meet the authorities, new country, and to be able to announce such a project. So I'm very happy, in fact, fundamentally. It's part of my life of CEO as some nice moment like this one to come to your country, Suriname, to meet Surinamese authorities and to share with them a moment, I would say, of pleasure together in order to bring, and I think we will bring prosperity to your country, which of course for us, to my companies as well, of course, we are there to make some profits, but the feeling that we will help people getting out of poverty and contributing to a better life to Surinamese people make me quite happy today. An FID, what does it mean? It means that today we are committed together with our partner, Apache, with Statsoli and with the authorities. We'll sign large contracts, 3 large contracts, one with SBM, a company which will build what we call the floating production unit. It's a giant boat, in fact, where we put all production units, $3 billion contract, which will be awarded to them. Then we'll award a contract to another company called Saipem for the subsea lines and one to Technip FMC for all the subsea equipment. We'll build on the 175 kilometers of subsea lines. We'll drill 32 wells, so all this equipment will be put subsea, 1,400 meter depths to water depths to 100 water depth. So this is the starting point from this construction phase. And we will build all that. Some of that will be built in different countries all over the planet, in China, in Malaysia, in Italy. And part of it will be spent in Suriname, which is where we have a direct contribution first so the Surinamese economy and Surinamese people, we estimate that we'll spend more than $1 billion out of the 10 here by logistics, supports to drilling, support to operations, so a lot of things which we have already done, in fact, beginning to done during the exploration phase at a small scale, and suddenly we will expand it, so which means that we'll need to have more Surinamese people working for us. We estimate that we'll create 2,000 direct jobs and 4,000 indirect jobs, hotels, all that. So it will be a lot of activity around this project. So that's what we are today launching. People, I think, do not imagine what it is, but the oil industry is able to build the new cathedral of the 21st century. And you will have your cathedral with this GranMorgu FPSO somewhere 150 kilometers from the coast. And that's what we are building for your country.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true.
What's the difference?
The difference is that we are in an oil environment where the price of oil is around $70, $80 per barrel. So you have an inflation. In fact, what happens is that even in this region, in the Gulf of Mexico or here, next to in Guyana, you have many projects. So you have a lot of activity. So we suffered from inflation, I would say. We did our best to manage with inflation. Compared to other projects today, which we have sanctioned, this one is quite well controlled. So that's why we will spend $10.5 billion. We have also decided to embark, to put on board the last technologies in order to minimize the emissions. For example, this famous production unit, will be completely electric with zero flare, so close flare, with permanent detection of any methane detector. So all that has a cost. When you want to minimize your impact on the environment, it has a cost. We took some decisions. But again, all in all, yes, it's a giant project. Yes, it's $10.5 billion, but it's fitting all our criteria. And that means that we are able to, with the board of directors, we met last week in Paris, we sanctioned it, we approved it, because it's a giant project. And this first investment could call more beyond, because we see, in fact, we are developing through GranMorgu 2 fields today, one called Cramer, the other one called Sapakara. And in fact, we are strongly convinced that there are more other smaller fields which are in this part of the Block 58. And with tomorrow, we will be able to drill and to develop and to put production through GranMorgu. So for us, GranMorgu, we see it as well as a hub of production for the future. And we have taken on this hub, on this FPSO, some provisions in order to be able to connect more lines in the future, more wells. So to extend the life of the project. So GranMorgu is a Goliath grouper, I understand. It's this fish has a life for 40 years, up to 40 years. It's a giant fish, up to 40 years. I'm sure GranMorgu unit will be designed and will have a production for maybe up to 40 years because it's a prolific block and concession on which we are working.
Yeah. Talking about the reduction of carbon footprint, and today you talked about more energy, less emission, more money.
But it's part of the management. A company like TotalEnergies, we must be able to combine, to continue to provide more energy because the planet needs more energy. You have a lot of people, you have still 1 billion people not having access to energy. You want energy to develop yourself, to have a better way of life, more energy, less emissions. That's a new constraint. In TotalEnergies, we took it very seriously. Climate change is a reality. And so in our operations, we have a commitment to lower the emissions of all our assets globally in the world by 40% between up to 2030, methane to reduce them by 80%. So of course, when we design a new project like GranMorgu, our duty is to put inside the design the best available technology. And we have a rule is that every new project must have lower emissions than the average of the company. So each new project is helping us to lower the average. And it works. So the idea is that to demonstrate the fact to the people, to societies, that you can continue to produce oil and gas, but with a different way, with less emissions. That means, for example, I mentioned zero routine flaring. Oil and gas when people have something in mind, they see big flares, which is a loss of gas, in fact, natural gas when you have a flare. It's detrimental for the environment. environment, and it's a loss of a natural resource. So on this one, we have decided that we'll flare no gas, and all the gas which will be produced will be reinjected in the reservoir, so that maybe later we'll have ideas to produce this gas again. So that's an example of preserving natural resource goes hand in hand to with the environment.
Yes.
Yeah, but the jobs, of course, local content is okay. I mentioned some figures, 6,000 jobs. In fact, but fundamentally, we will begin to, for example, to recruit the first batch of people, of future operators that we need to train to run this FPSO. It's not an easy task, you know. You need to be trained. So we intend to have a first batch of 150 Surinamese people. We will educate, train them to become operator from 28 and to participate to the commissioning of a facility. So that will be very pragmatic. We are pragmatic people. So that's part of the contribution. But as I said, there is also some other services which will need to be developed. One of the commitments we have to take, because it's part of the, we have identified the symbolic projects, which is not oil and gas, not directly linked to operations, but we will make contributions to 2 hospitals in order to build or to have a better mother and child health centers, understand, in 2 Paramaribo hospitals. And it's not just a donation money. It's, in fact, we want that to be really corporate responsibility and to be really, to improve really, I would say, the way that these mother and children are welcome in these hospitals. So we'll have a project manager to take care of the project, to be, again, to give something to society. I know, I understand. I asked my team, okay, what could be a social contribution which will make sense for Surinamese people? They came back to me and they told me, look, it's health, and in particular, improving the way that these mother and children are welcome in the hospital would be, is something which today should be improved. So we don't mean, okay, let's spend the money for that. So it's not, and we will do it now without waiting for future profits, you know. And there will be other ideas, I'm sure, because fundamentally in our company, we want to be local where we are in the country. So to participate, we are citizens of your country. We will become citizens. Today we are just foreigners coming with big money and investments. But at the end of the day, what I want, and I just visited my teams. Yeah, only 50 people for the time being, but we'll grow, of course, our own employees. I want them to participate, to be recognized as a source of, again, prosperity for everybody in the country.
Okay.
No, because it's decided now. It's decided. I don't control the oil price. The oil price will fluctuate, of course, but you know what is sure is that now we have decided to commit these investments, large investments. We'll spend the money, and then our experience is that it's never a straight line. You don't dream. You know, oil price is going from. Since I am CEO 10 years ago, I have experienced $27 per barrel and $95 per barrel. You know, so in fact, it's part of what TotalEnergies can accept. Because it's why the advantage of TotalEnergies, we are a very large company, so we can, in fact, I would say, swallow this fluctuation of oil and gas. So once we are committed, and we develop the projects. I cannot stop. There is something we never do, is stopping a project when it's launched because it could cost more. So, and again, I don't know what will be the oil price by 2028. I hope it will be a good price. I'm quite optimistic because in this energy transition, people think we'll need less oil, and in fact, it's every year, oil demand continue to grow. So I think I'm optimistic by the oil price. And again, this project will resist. This is one of the characteristics. When we invest in a project if the break-even, if the technical cost is low. So it's less than $25 per barrel here in Suriname, $25 per barrel. That means that if the price of oil is above $25 per barrel, we'll make profits, and these profits will be shared between the state of Suriname and us as partners. So this is the best answer to you. I don't think the oil will go down to $25 per barrel, and if it's $80 per barrel, of course the cake will be bigger, and then there will be the size, the share of the state of Suriname will be bigger. By the way, be clear, in this type of contracts and projects, the state has a lion's share more than us. So we are, but we have also, of course, a good profit because this is what makes us sustainable and long term. As I mentioned to you, I'm sure that we'll find some new other small oil fields, which we have already identified on the seismic, which will be drilled and which could come on to be produced through GranMorgu. And then we have a question about the gas. There is quite a lot of gas on this license. So the difficulty with natural gas is to find markets. And local market is quite small, obviously. And so can we do something at what we call liquefied natural gas projects? It's not clear. It's giant projects, and maybe we'll need to pool the gas of Block 58 with the gas of other licenses.
Okay, so Suriname, as you know, is one of the greenest countries in the world. We are, in fact, one of the 7 carbon negative countries in the world. What environmental safeguards TotalEnergies is putting in place to ensure the protection of Suriname's coastal and marine ecosystems?
Obviously, of course, it has been part. We made some strong studies, and it's part of our not only duty, but it's part of our commitment to sustainable development. So we studied a lot all the biodiversity aspects of the projects in order to avoid any wrong things, any wrong, I would say, design. In particular, this what we take care as well a lot is the risk of spill. We all know that sometimes it could happen, and that could be very detrimental if you have an oil spill going to the coast. So we have a lot of capacity. Means first, it's designed not to happen, but if it happens, we have some ways to intervene to block the oil spill. And also, by the way, we discussed with our friends of which are operating in Guyana to have an I would say, connection in order to be able to call for the help in case we would have a large spill. So that's being able to react. First, of course, it's to avoid, and that's our duty as operator. And then, if it's not avoided, we don't suffer a lot in our operations, to be honest, then to be able to react in order to protect the coast of Suriname. But again, this type of events are very scarce, and in our operations, we don't suffer a lot. We don't suffer much.
Exactly. We can keep our green status going together with exploiting our
I mean, of course, it's better. By the way, you have a negative carbon sinks. Oil is producing some greenhouse gas. It's a decision by the state. But I discussed that with your president, who was very clear on it. I think it's very clear because, and by the way, being in a country like Suriname, which has carbon sinks, it helps, by the way, to balance it. But I think the right of development for Surinamese people is clear. I mean, you have natural resources. If other countries would not like you to develop them, then they should bring you the money to develop it. It's not the case. So I think we can combine both. TotalEnergies would be happy, by the way, to invest in the Surinamese forest if we can find ideas on mangroves in order to continue to have some, to develop some carbon sinks to compensate at the level of the country. It's a little tricky today because all that is not very well established at the international level. And strangely, it's more complex to demonstrate that we will contribute to climate when you have a negative country like Suriname. But again, in fact, somewhere it helps us to come in a country with such a, I would say, a nice contribution to the climate change. Again, I just have answered you. I think we have some capacities to react, which we called so we have some systems in which we have mobilized. First, we have on board on the FPSO capacities to come in the sea and to limit the footprint of such an oil spill. And if it was becoming larger, we have some cooperation with other operators which will be executed. But again, this type of events are very scarce, and we do our best to avoid them. But the first priority is to avoid before to then, I would say, remedy in case we have an accident.
Yes.
Again, we came to this country only in 2019. We are successful, so the success in our interest, me as a CEO, is we invest a lot in your country. In Suriname, we want to expand, if possible, our footprint. So in taking new exploration license is a nice way to do it. We began by taking Blok 6 and 8, then 64. I know that my explorers would like to drill the Blok 64, but even on the Blok 58, we still have big areas where we have some prospects to be drilled. So, I mean, it's again, it's a logic. It's a huge investment in Suriname, so we want to, I would say, benefit of it in order to possibly expand our position. So, for me, TotalEnergies is coming, and the idea is to become maybe one of the largest partner for Suriname for long, and that's part of oil and gas. It's a long, I would say, long-term investments, medium, long-term investments. You capitalize, you build, you train people, so then you will then be more profitable if you can expand your presence. So that's the spirit of it. So yes, it's a strong commitment, and I'm sure I came this year. I'm sure I will come back to Suriname, and I hope to celebrate not only the first oil of GranMorgu in 28, but maybe more projects in the coming years.
So there's a possibility you will stay longer than 40 years?
I hope so. That's the objective.
Thank you, Mr. Pouyanné.
Thank you.